Muslim teen bullied for her hijab, then becomes the school's valedictorian. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. Amina clutched her books tightly as she walked down the bustling hallways of Valley High School. The familiar whispers followed her, cutting through the noise like shards of glass. She could feel the weight of the stairs, the curious, judgmental eyes lingering on her pink hijab. It wasn't new, she had dealt with this ever since she started wearing it 2 years ago, but that didn't make it any easier. "Look, it's the headscarf girl," one boy muttered loudly enough for her to hear. His friends snickered, their laughter echoing against the lockers. Amina's heart clenched, but she kept her gaze forward, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, "Your strength is your dignity, Amina. Never let them take that from you." As she rounded the corner, a group of girls standing near her locker fell silent. One of them, a blonde with a sharp smirk, deliberately stepped forward, bumping into Amina and causing her books to scatter across the floor. "Oh, sorry," the girl said mockingly, her tone anything but apologetic. Her friends erupted into laughter as Amina knelt to pick up her books. "Need help, Scarfy?" another girl teased, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Amina's cheeks burned, but she didn't say a word. She gathered her books quickly, willing herself not to cry. As she stood, she noticed a teacher walking past, his expression neutral. He had clearly witnessed the exchange but made no effort to intervene. Amina swallowed hard, the sting of his indifference cutting almost as deeply as the insults. By the time she reached her next class, her hands were trembling. She slid into her seat, keeping her head low as the teacher began the lecture. The words blurred together as Amina's thoughts raced. Why did they hate her so much? Was it because of her hijab? Because she was different? She had always excelled in school, keeping her head down and focusing on her studies. Yet, no matter how much she tried to blend in, she was always singled out. At lunch, Amina sat alone in her usual spot by the window. She pretended to be engrossed in her notebook, sketching aimlessly to avoid the prying eyes around her. Across the cafeteria, the same group of girls who had harassed her earlier were laughing loudly, their gestures animated as they reenacted their earlier cruelty. Amina clenched her pen tighter, her sketch morphing into an angry scribble. "You okay?" a voice interrupted her thoughts. Amina looked up to see Lily, a girl from her biology class, standing hesitantly beside her. Amina forced a small smile. "Yeah, I'm fine." Lily sat down across from her, uninvited but welcome. "I saw what happened earlier. Those girls are the worst." "It's fine," Amina said quietly, her voice betraying the hurt she tried to hide. "I'm used to it." "Well, you shouldn't have to be," Lily said firmly. "They're just jealous. You're smarter than all of them combined." Amina's smile became a little more genuine. "Thanks, Lily." The two talked for the rest of lunch, and for the first time in a long while, Amina felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. That evening, as Amina sat at her desk working on her math homework, her mother knocked softly on the door. "Amina, everything okay?" Amina hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, just school stuff." Her mother stepped into the room, her gaze gentle but searching. "I know it's hard," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "But remember what you're doing, wearing your hijab, staying true to who you are. It's a sign of strength. Not everyone will understand, but that doesn't mean you should stop." "I know, Mama," Amina said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just, some days are harder than others." Her mother reached out and took her hand. "Those hard days are the ones that make you stronger. And you, my dear, are stronger than you realize." Amina nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude for her mother's unwavering support. That night, as she lay in bed, she replayed her mother's words in her mind. She thought about the students at school, the cruel comments, and the teacher who had turned a blind eye. It wasn't fair, but she couldn't let it break her. She had dreams, big ones. Dreams of becoming a doctor, of making a difference in the world. And no one's hatred or ignorance was going to take that away from her. The next morning, Amina walked into school with her head held a little higher. The whispers and stares were still there, but she focused on the supportive words from her mother and Lily. She had a quiz in chemistry that day, a subject she excelled in, and she was determined to ace it. During class, the teacher handed back their graded quizzes. Amina's paper had a large 100% scrawled across the top in red ink. She smiled, her confidence bolstered by the validation of her hard work. "Wow, nerd much," one of the boys behind her sneered, leaning over to look at her paper. Amina ignored him, holding the quiz closer to her chest. She wouldn't let them ruin this moment for her. The teacher, noticing her score, called out, "Excellent work, Amina. Keep it up." A few students clapped half-heartedly, but the murmurs of resentment from her bullies were louder. Still, Amina refused to let them see her falter. She thanked the teacher politely and focused on the lesson, her resolve strengthening with every passing minute. As the day went on, Amina found herself thinking about what her father had told her during one of their late-night talks. When people try to tear you down, he had said, it's because they see something in you they don't have. You shine, Amina, and that scares them. She smiled at the memory, her father's words filling her with a renewed sense of purpose. She wouldn't let their words define her. She was more than their labels, more than their hate. And one day she would show them just how strong she could be. Walking home after school, Amina stopped at the library, her favorite place to escape. Surrounded by rows of books and the quiet hum of readers, she felt at peace. She found a secluded corner and pulled out her notebook, jotting down her thoughts and goals for the future. As she wrote, her determination grew. She would excel in her classes, apply to top universities, and achieve her dreams. Not for the approval of others, but for herself and the people who believed in her. By the time she left the library, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the town. Amina walked home with a renewed sense of hope. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to face whatever came her way. Amina's resolve was stronger than ever, but the challenges didn't let up. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of academic pressure and relentless taunting from her classmates. Each day felt like a new test of her patience and determination. Yet, despite everything, she kept her head high and her focus sharper than ever. The bullying escalated in subtle yet hurtful ways. During a group project in history class, Amina was assigned to work with 3 students who clearly didn't want her there. They ignored her suggestions, spoke over her, and even accidentally excluded her name from the final presentation slides. When the teacher asked why her name wasn't listed, one of the boys, Ryan, smirked and said, "She didn't really contribute much." Amina's stomach twisted. "That's not true," she said, her voice steady but strained. "I did my part and I sent my work to the group." "Sure you did," Ryan shot back, his tone dripping with sarcasm. The teacher, visibly uncomfortable, hesitated for a moment before moving on. Amina clenched her fists under the desk, feeling the familiar sting of injustice. It wasn't just the students. Sometimes it felt like the teachers didn't want to rock the boat either. She was alone in this, or at least that's how it felt most days. That evening, as she sat at her desk trying to focus on her homework, the frustration bubbled to the surface. She threw down her pen and buried her face in her hands. "Why does it have to be like this?" she muttered to herself. Her father, hearing the commotion, knocked on her door. "Amina, what's wrong?" She hesitated before opening up. "It's school. No matter what I do, it feels like it's never enough. They don't see me for who I am, just for what I wear." Her father sat down beside her, his expression thoughtful. "Amina, I know it's hard. But remember, you're not just representing yourself. You're representing your values, your family, and your community. That's a heavy burden, but it's also an honor. You're strong enough to carry it." Amina looked at him, her eyes glistening with tears. "I just want them to see me for who I really am." "They will," he said firmly. "It might take time, but they will. And when they do, you'll have proven to them, and to yourself, that you're more than they could ever imagine." His words stayed with her as she returned to her studies. She channeled her anger and frustration into her work, poring over her textbooks with a renewed sense of purpose. If they wanted to underestimate her, fine. She would let her achievements speak louder than their hate. The next day, Amina arrived at school with a quiet determination. She had decided to speak to the guidance counselor about the bullying. Mrs. Carter was known for her warm demeanor, and Amina hoped she would understand. As she sat in the small, cozy office, Amina explained what had been happening: the snide remarks, the exclusion, the outright disrespect. Mrs. Carter listened intently, her brow furrowed. "I'm so sorry you've been going through this, Amina," she said finally. "No one should have to endure what you've described." Amina nodded, a lump forming in her throat. "I just want to be treated like everyone else. I want to be seen." Mrs. Carter leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "You are seen, Amina. I see you. And I'll do everything I can to address this with the staff and students. But remember, your worth isn't defined by how others treat you. It's defined by how you carry yourself in the face of adversity. And from what I've seen, you're carrying yourself with incredible strength." Amina left the office feeling lighter. It wasn't a solution, but it was a start. Someone in the school was finally listening. In the weeks that followed, Amina threw herself into her studies and extracurriculars. She began working on a science project for the regional competition, an ambitious experiment analyzing renewable energy solutions. It was a subject she was deeply passionate about, and she found solace in the hours spent tinkering with her models and collecting data. Her project caught the attention of Mr. Hargrove, the science teacher, who offered to mentor her. "This is impressive work, Amina," he said one afternoon as he reviewed her progress. "You have a real talent for this." "Thank you," she replied, her cheeks flushing with pride. "I've always loved science. It just makes sense to me." Mr. Hargrove nodded. "Keep at it. I think you have a real shot at winning this competition." The encouragement fueled her drive, and she spent every spare moment perfecting her project. Late nights at the dining table became the norm, with her family offering words of support and her younger brother occasionally sneaking bites of the snacks she kept by her side. The day of the competition arrived, and Amina stood nervously by her display board, her heart pounding as the judges approached. She explained her project with clarity and passion, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. The judges nodded thoughtfully, asking questions that she answered with confidence. When the winners were announced, Amina's name was called for first place. She stood frozen for a moment, disbelief washing over her before breaking into a wide smile. Her family, who had come to support her, erupted into cheers as she walked onto the stage to accept her medal. As she looked out at the crowd, she caught sight of one of her classmates in the audience, a boy who had mocked her during the group project. His expression was unreadable, but for once, there was no trace of ridicule. Amina felt a surge of pride. She had earned this not just despite the challenges she faced but because of them. The win was a turning point. Teachers began to take notice of Amina's potential, and even some of her classmates started treating her with a newfound respect. It wasn't a complete transformation, there were still whispers and stares, but the tide was beginning to turn. Amina continued to excel, her achievements piling up as she balanced her academic workload with extracurricular activities. She joined the debate team, where her eloquence and poise quickly made her a standout member. She volunteered at the local community center, tutoring younger students in math and science. And through it all, she remained steadfast in her commitment to her faith and her values. One afternoon, Lily approached her in the hallway, a wide grin on her face. "Hey, I heard they're considering you for valedictorian." Amina's eyes widened. "What? Are you serious?" "Totally serious," Lily said. "You've got the grades, the awards, and the respect of the teachers. If anyone deserves it, it's you." The possibility filled Amina with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had worked so hard, but the idea of standing in front of the entire school, of being seen so fully, was both thrilling and terrifying. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about how far she had come. The bullying, the exclusion, the doubt, it had all shaped her, pushing her to grow in ways she never imagined. And now, she was on the brink of something extraordinary. Amina smiled to herself, a quiet determination settling over her. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. And she couldn't wait to see what came next. As the final months of the school year approached, Amina threw herself into her studies and responsibilities with renewed determination. The whispers about her possibly being named valedictorian grew louder, both among her supporters and detractors. The thought of standing in front of the entire school, delivering a speech that could define her journey, both thrilled and terrified her. One day during lunch, Lily slid into the seat across from her, grinning ear to ear. "So," she began, not even bothering to hide her excitement, "I overheard Mrs. Carter talking to Mr. Hargrove. They're all but certain you're going to be named valedictorian." Amina's heart skipped a beat. "You're kidding," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I'm not," Lily insisted. "I mean, come on, you've earned it. Nobody works harder than you." Amina leaned back in her seat, her mind racing. She had worked tirelessly, not for the recognition but to prove to herself and others that she could rise above the challenges thrown her way. Yet, the idea of becoming valedictorian was almost too much to believe. She thought back to the days when she felt invisible, when her accomplishments were overshadowed by the prejudice she faced. To think that all of it had led to this moment felt surreal. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," Amina admitted. "What would I even say in a speech like that?" Lily reached across the table and placed a hand on Amina's. "You've got plenty to say. Your story is incredible, Amina. People need to hear it." Later that day, Amina walked into the library to find a quiet corner to think. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books as she made her way to her favorite seat by the window. As she sat down and opened her notebook, her pen hovered over the blank page. What would she say if she were given the chance to address her peers? What message would she want to leave behind? Her thoughts were interrupted by a group of students entering the library, their laughter carrying through the otherwise quiet space. Among them was Ryan, one of the boys who had consistently mocked her. Amina tensed as they walked past her table, but to her surprise, Ryan paused. "Hey Amina," he said, his tone less hostile than she expected. "Congrats on the science competition. That was impressive." Amina blinked, unsure of how to respond. "Thanks," she said cautiously, her pen still poised over her notebook. Ryan nodded awkwardly before walking away, his friends whispering behind him. Amina stared after him, her thoughts swirling. Was this an attempt at reconciliation? Did he mean it, or was it just another game? She couldn't be sure, but for the first time she felt a shift, however small. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Amina balanced her final exams, her work at the community center, and her duties on the debate team. Each accomplishment brought her closer to the end of high school, and the anticipation of what lay ahead filled her with both excitement and trepidation. Then one afternoon she was called to the principal's office. Her stomach churned as she walked down the hallway, her mind racing with possibilities. When she entered the office, she was greeted by Principal Hawkins, Mrs. Carter, and Mr. Hargrove, all smiling warmly. "Amina," Principal Hawkins began, gesturing for her to sit, "we wanted to personally inform you that you've been chosen as this year's valedictorian." The words hung in the air, almost too surreal to process. Amina's eyes widened and she felt a rush of emotions: pride, disbelief, gratitude. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "You've earned this," Mrs. Carter said, her voice filled with pride. "Your hard work, your resilience, your determination, it's all paid off." Mr. Hargrove nodded. "We're all so proud of you, Amina. You've set an incredible example for your peers." As she left the office, the reality of the moment began to sink in. She was the valedictorian. The girl who had endured years of bullying and doubt, who had been dismissed and overlooked, was now at the top of her class. She felt a mix of joy and responsibility. This was her chance to tell her story, to show others that they could rise above their struggles. That evening, Amina sat at her desk, staring at the blank page in her notebook once again. This time the words came more easily. She wrote about her journey, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned along the way. She thought about her parents, whose sacrifices and encouragement had shaped her into the person she was. She thought about Lily, whose friendship had been a beacon of light in her darkest moments. And she thought about the students who had bullied her, wondering if they had begun to understand the impact of their actions. Her speech took shape over the next few days, each word carefully chosen to convey her message. She wanted her classmates to know that success wasn't about fitting into a mold or meeting someone else's expectations. It was about staying true to yourself even when the world tried to tear you down. The day of graduation arrived, and Amina stood backstage in her cap and gown, her heart pounding. The auditorium was packed with students, families, and teachers, all waiting for the ceremony to begin. Amina peeked out from behind the curtain and spotted her parents in the front row, their faces glowing with pride. Her father waved and she felt a surge of confidence. As the ceremony progressed, Amina listened as the principal called out names and handed out diplomas. The moment she had been waiting for finally arrived when Principal Hawkins stepped up to the microphone and announced, "And now, it is my honor to introduce this year's valedictorian, Amina Khan." The room erupted into applause as Amina stepped onto the stage. She gripped the edges of the podium, her hands trembling slightly, and looked out at the sea of faces before her. Taking a deep breath, she began. "Good afternoon, everyone," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Standing here today, I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude, for my family, for my teachers, and for the journey that brought me to this moment." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "The past few years haven't been easy. There were times when I felt invisible, dismissed, and even unwelcome. But those moments taught me something important, that our strength isn't measured by the obstacles we face, but by how we rise above them." Amina continued, sharing her story with honesty and vulnerability. She spoke about the challenges of staying true to herself, the support of her family and friends, and the power of resilience. As she spoke, she saw tears in the eyes of some audience members and thoughtful expressions on others. "We all have the power to make a difference," she concluded. "Not just by achieving great things but by showing kindness, understanding, and respect to those around us. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about what we accomplish, it's about who we become." The auditorium erupted into applause, and Amina felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. As she stepped off the stage, her family enveloped her in a tight embrace, their cheers filling her heart with joy. This was her moment, a testament to her strength, her determination, and her unwavering belief in herself. Amina knew her journey was just beginning, and she couldn't wait to see what the future held. As the applause from her speech finally quieted, Amina returned to her seat on the stage, her heart still racing. The weight of what had just happened began to sink in. She had spoken her truth in front of the entire school, her classmates, teachers, and even the bullies who had tried to silence her voice for so long. And they had listened. After the ceremony ended, Amina was swarmed by a mix of friends, classmates, and even some teachers who wanted to congratulate her. Among them was Lily, who pulled her into a tight hug. "You were incredible up there," Lily said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "I knew you'd crush it, but that was next level." "Thanks, Lily," Amina replied, her smile beaming. "I couldn't have done this without your support." One by one, others approached her. Some offered polite congratulations, while others were visibly moved by her words. A few of her classmates, including those who had been complicit in the bullying, seemed hesitant, as if unsure how to approach her now. To Amina's surprise, Ryan, the same boy who had mocked her countless times, stepped forward. His usual smirk was absent, replaced by a look of unease. He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly before speaking. "Hey Amina," he began, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. What I said, what I did, it wasn't right." Amina studied him for a moment, her emotions swirling. Part of her wanted to lash out, to remind him of every cruel word and action. But another part of her saw the sincerity in his expression. This was what her speech had been about: growth, understanding, and kindness. "Thank you," she said finally, her tone calm but firm. "I appreciate you saying that. I hope you've learned something from all of this." Ryan nodded, his face flushed with embarrassment. "I have," he said simply before stepping back into the crowd. Amina's parents soon found her, their faces glowing with pride. Her mother hugged her tightly, whispering, "You've made us so proud, Amina. Your strength, your heart, it's everything we've ever hoped for." Her father, always composed, had tears in his eyes as he said, "Today, you showed the world what we've always known. You are unstoppable." The family posed for photos, laughing and celebrating the moment. Amina felt a deep sense of gratitude for their unwavering support, which had carried her through even the darkest times. In the days that followed, Amina's speech became the talk of the school. Teachers referenced it in their final classes, praising her courage and wisdom. Her classmates shared clips of the speech on social media, and the messages of support began pouring in from all corners. One morning, as Amina scrolled through her phone, she came across a message from a freshman girl named Layla. Read, "Hi Amina. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm a freshman at Valley High. I just wanted to say thank you for your speech. I wear a hijab too, and it's been really hard for me to feel accepted here. Seeing you stand up there and talk about your journey gave me so much hope. You're amazing." Amina's heart swelled as she typed her reply, "Thank you so much, Layla. I know how tough it can be, but never forget how strong and beautiful you are. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." The message reminded Amina of why she had shared her story. It wasn't just about her, it was about inspiring others to embrace their identities and rise above the challenges they faced. As the summer began, Amina turned her focus to preparing for college. She had been accepted into a prestigious university on a full scholarship, and she was eager to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. Her time at Valley High had been transformative, shaping her into someone who could face adversity with grace and determination. Before leaving for college, Amina decided to visit the community center where she had volunteered. She wanted to say goodbye to the kids she had tutored and thank the staff who had supported her. When she arrived, she was greeted with warm smiles and hugs. One of the younger girls, a shy fourth grader named Hannah, approached her with wide eyes. "Are you really going to be a doctor?" Hannah asked, her voice filled with wonder. Amina crouched down to Hannah's level, her smile kind. "That's the plan," she said. "And maybe one day you'll be whatever you dream of being too." Hannah nodded eagerly. "I want to be a scientist." "You can do it," Amina said, her tone encouraging. "Just work hard and believe in yourself." The visit reminded Amina of the importance of giving back and lifting others as she climbed. She promised herself that no matter where life took her, she would always find ways to support and inspire those who needed it most. The night before she left for college, Amina sat in her room, reflecting on her journey. She thought about the girl she had been when she first walked the halls of Valley High, quiet, unsure of herself, and burdened by the weight of others' judgments. And she thought about the woman she had become, confident, resilient, and determined to make a difference. Her parents joined her, sitting beside her on the bed. "You've come so far, Amina," her mother said, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. "We always knew you were destined for great things." Amina smiled, her heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you." As she hugged them tightly, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the love and support that had carried her through the toughest moments of her life. The next morning, as Amina loaded her suitcase into the car and said her final goodbyes, she looked back at her family and her neighborhood one last time. She was ready for this next chapter, ready to take on the world and show everyone what she was capable of. As the car pulled away, she felt a mix of emotions: excitement, nervousness, and an overwhelming sense of hope. Her journey was far from over, but she knew one thing for certain. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the strength and resilience she had built along the way. Arriving on the campus of her new university, Amina felt both exhilarated and overwhelmed. The sprawling buildings, the buzz of students moving between classes, and the sheer size of the place were unlike anything she had experienced before. She took a deep breath, clutching her schedule tightly as she navigated her way to her dormitory. Her roommate, a bubbly engineering major named Priya, greeted her with an enthusiastic smile. "You must be Amina?" Priya exclaimed, rushing over to help her with her bags. "I've heard so much about you, valedictorian, right? That's so cool." Amina smiled shyly, surprised that her reputation had preceded her. "Yeah, that's me," she said, setting her suitcase down. "It's nice to meet you." As the two settled into their new space, Priya's friendly energy helped ease Amina's nerves. They talked late into the night, sharing stories about their high school experiences and their dreams for the future. Priya was refreshingly open-minded, and Amina felt an immediate sense of relief. She had found an ally in this new chapter of her life. The first few weeks of classes were intense. The coursework was challenging, and the pace was far faster than Amina had anticipated. Still, she threw herself into her studies, determined to keep up with the demanding schedule. Her professors were inspiring, and she found herself fascinated by every lecture, from biology to organic chemistry. But with the new environment came new challenges. On her second day of class, Amina overheard a group of students whispering behind her in the lecture hall. "Isn't it hot wearing that thing all the time?" one of them muttered, his voice dripping with condescension. "She must get so sweaty," another added, snickering. Amina's chest tightened, but she forced herself to focus on the professor's words. She had been through this before, and she wasn't going to let their ignorance distract her. Still, the comments lingered in her mind long after class ended. Later that evening, Amina called her mother. "It's happening again," she said softly, her voice trembling. "The stares, the whispers. I thought things would be different here." Her mother's voice was calm and steady. "Amina, remember what we've always told you. Your hijab is a symbol of your strength and faith. It's not for them to understand, it's for you. Keep your head high, my love. You've overcome so much already, and you'll overcome this too." Her mother's words gave her comfort, and the next day, Amina walked into her classes with renewed confidence. She knew she couldn't control how others perceived her, but she could control how she responded. She was here to learn, to grow, and to achieve her dreams. Nothing else mattered. As the weeks went on, Amina began to find her footing. She joined the pre-med club, where she connected with other students who shared her passion for medicine. She also volunteered at the university hospital, shadowing doctors and gaining valuable hands-on experience. The work was challenging, but it reaffirmed her belief that this was the path she was meant to take. One evening, after a particularly long shift at the hospital, Amina returned to her dorm to find Priya waiting for her with a box of pizza and a pile of notes. "I figured you could use a break," Priya said with a grin. "And also, I need your brain power to help me figure out this calculus problem." Amina laughed, grateful for the distraction. The two spent the next few hours solving equations, laughing over silly mistakes, and bonding over their shared workload. Priya's friendship became a source of light in Amina's busy, often overwhelming schedule. But it wasn't just Priya who noticed Amina's dedication and resilience. One of her professors, Dr. Patel, called her into his office after class one day. "Amina," he said, gesturing for her to sit, "I've been very impressed with your work. Your commitment and passion for medicine are evident, and I believe you have the potential to do great things." "Thank you, Dr. Patel," Amina said, her cheeks flushing with pride. "That means a lot to me. There's an opportunity one think you'd be perfect for," he continued. "It's a research program focused on public health initiatives in underserved communities. It's highly competitive, but I believe you have what it takes to succeed." Amina's heart raced at the prospect. The program sounded like a dream, an opportunity to make a real impact while gaining valuable experience. I'd love to apply, she said, her voice filled with determination. The application process was rigorous, requiring essays, recommendations, and an interview. Amina poured her heart into every word, drawing on her own experiences to highlight her passion for helping others. She wrote about her family's journey as immigrants, her struggles with bullying, and how those challenges had shaped her into someone who wanted to create change. When the acceptance email finally arrived, Amina could hardly believe it. She had been selected for the program. Overcome with joy, she called her parents to share the news. "We're so proud of you, Amina," her father said, his voice brimming with emotion. "You're showing the world what it means to persevere." The research program became one of the most rewarding experiences of Amina's life. She worked with a diverse team of students and professionals, traveling to underserved communities to conduct health assessments and implement educational initiatives. The work was challenging and often emotionally draining, but it reinforced her belief in the importance of compassion and empathy in medicine. One day, while visiting a rural clinic, Amina met a young girl named Zainab. The girl, no older than 10, wore a bright yellow hijab and looked up at Amina with wide, curious eyes. "Are you a doctor?" Zainab asked, her voice filled with wonder. "Not yet," Amina replied with a smile. "But one day I will be." Zainab's face lit up. "I want to be a doctor too." "You can be," Amina said, her tone gentle but firm. "You can be anything you want to be." As she left the clinic that day, Amina thought about Zainab and all the other young girls who dreamed of a brighter future. She hoped that her journey would inspire them to believe in their own strength and potential. As her first year of college came to a close, Amina reflected on everything she had accomplished. The road hadn't been easy, but every challenge had pushed her to grow in ways she never imagined. She was more determined than ever to continue her journey, not just for herself but for everyone who had supported her and for those who would follow in her footsteps. Standing on the threshold of her future, Amina felt a sense of purpose unlike anything she had ever known. She was ready to keep moving forward, to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and to make a difference in the world, one step at a time. Amina's second year of college began with even more intensity than the first. With her research program and pre-med courses in full swing, every moment of her schedule was packed. Yet, she embraced the challenge with open arms. Each lecture, lab session, and late-night study group brought her closer to her dream of becoming a doctor. Her confidence had grown exponentially since her days at Valley High. She had faced adversity and come out stronger on the other side, and that resilience carried her through even the most stressful moments. Still, there were days when the weight of her responsibilities felt overwhelming. One such evening, as she sat in the library surrounded by towering stacks of textbooks, Amina's phone buzzed. It was a message from her younger brother, Yassine. "Hey Amina. Guess what? I won first place in the science fair." A smile spread across her face as she read the text. She quickly typed a reply, "That's amazing, Yassine. I'm so proud of you. Tell me all about it." Yassine responded with a flurry of messages, describing his project in intricate detail. As Amina read his excited words, she felt a surge of pride. Her brother's success reminded her of why she worked so hard. She wanted to set an example for him and others like him, to show them that anything was possible with determination and effort. The conversation gave her the boost she needed to power through her study session. By the time she closed her books and headed back to her dorm, she felt recharged and ready to tackle whatever came next. In the weeks that followed, Amina continued to make strides in her academic and extracurricular pursuits. Her work in the research program earned her recognition from her professors, and she was invited to present her findings at a national conference. The opportunity was both thrilling and nerve-wracking, but Amina knew it was a chance to showcase her hard work and passion. The conference was held in a bustling convention center, filled with students, researchers, and professionals from across the country. Amina stood by her poster presentation, her heart pounding as attendees stopped to read her work and ask questions. She spoke with confidence, explaining her research and its implications with clarity and enthusiasm. One of the attendees, a renowned physician named Dr. Evelyn Brooks, lingered at Amina's poster, listening intently as she spoke. When Amina finished, Dr. Brooks smiled warmly. "Your work is impressive," she said. "It's rare to see such dedication and insight from someone so early in their career." "Thank you," Amina said, her cheeks flushing with pride. "That means a lot coming from you." Dr. Brooks handed Amina her business card. "If you're ever interested in shadowing or mentorship opportunities, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help." Amina accepted the card with a grateful smile. The encounter felt like a turning point, a sign that her hard work was opening doors to even greater opportunities. Back at school, Amina's accomplishments didn't go unnoticed. Her professors continued to praise her dedication, and her peers began to look to her as a leader and mentor. She joined a student organization that focused on supporting underrepresented groups in medicine, using her platform to advocate for diversity and inclusion. One evening during a meeting of the organization, a freshman student named Farah approached Amina. "I just wanted to say thank you," Farah said, her voice filled with emotion. "Seeing someone like you, someone who looks like me, doing all of this makes me believe I can do it too." Amina felt a lump in her throat as she responded. "You absolutely can, Farah. And if you ever need guidance or support, I'm here for you." The interaction reminded Amina of how far she had come since her days at Valley High. She had gone from being the target of bullying to becoming a source of inspiration for others. It was a role she embraced wholeheartedly, knowing how much representation and support could mean to someone navigating the same challenges she had faced. As the semester progressed, Amina faced new challenges that tested her resilience once again. During a particularly grueling week of exams, she found herself doubting her abilities. The pressure of maintaining her grades, excelling in her research, and staying involved in her extracurriculars felt like too much to handle. One night, as she sat in her dorm room staring blankly at her notes, Priya walked in and immediately noticed her friend's exhaustion. "Amina, you need a break," Priya said, setting down her bag. "Come on, let's go for a walk." "I can't," Amina said, shaking her head. "I have too much to do. And you won't get any of it done if you burn out," Priya replied firmly. "5 minutes. Let's go." Reluctantly, Amina followed Priya outside. The crisp evening air and the quiet hum of the campus at night were a welcome contrast to the chaos in her mind. As they walked, Priya talked about her latest engineering project, sharing funny anecdotes and lighthearted stories that made Amina laugh for the first time in days. "See?" Priya said, grinning. "You needed this." "Thanks, Priya," Amina said, her smile genuine. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd figure it out," Priya said with a wink. "But I'm glad I can help." The break was exactly what Amina needed to reset her mindset. She returned to her studies with renewed focus, tackling each task one step at a time. By the end of the week, she had aced her exams and completed her assignments, proving to herself once again that she was capable of overcoming even the toughest challenges. As the year came to a close, Amina reflected on everything she had accomplished. Her work in the research program, her role in the student organization, and her academic success had all pushed her closer to her dream of becoming a doctor. But more than that, they had taught her the importance of balance, resilience, and the power of community. Looking ahead, Amina knew there would be more challenges to face and more barriers to break. But she also knew that she was ready for whatever came next. With each step forward, she was not only building her future but also paving the way for others to follow. As she packed her bags for the summer, preparing to return home and spend time with her family, Amina felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey had been long and difficult, but every moment had shaped her into the person she was today. And she couldn't wait to see where the road would take her next.